Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Cindy Chavez here. Today is Wednesday, January the 2nd, 2019. It's 4 p.m. New York time, 1 p.m. in 1 p.m. in Los Angeles, 9 p.m. in London, and Sydney, Australia. That would make it 12 noon. So wherever you are in the world, thank you for tuning in, listening live, or listening to the recorded podcast, either way. We're glad to have you here for your daily dose of happy. And Cindy, we thought this morning we were going to be talking about Neville Goddard and the power of awareness, but it didn't quite go that way, which was great. We loved it. We never got there. You can't get there from here. No, seriously. That's a main thing. It was great because we had all these people asking questions, and we actually didn't even get all the questions answered. We had more than we could handle, but that was nice. We enjoyed that. Yeah. So we'll take another stab at Neville this afternoon, but who knows? Maybe we'll get more questions. You never know. And if we do, hey, that's much more fun answering the questions of listeners. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, I love it when questions come in. Questions, and we had a caller this morning.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, that's actually, maybe this is like breaking the ice, so to speak. Maybe more people will decide to come on and actually talk to us on the Blue Jeans platform. And if you're feeling daring, the link, if you're listening to the live stream and feeling daring, the link is in the description on the Facebook page. So, just click the link and that's how you'll connect in. It'll walk you through the process of setting up the app, and it'll connect you right to the group, and we'll see you. And we'll bring you on. Why not? That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yep.
But in the meantime, I just want to make sure I've got everything hooked up here. As usual, I have 50 things I have to do when I'm hooking this thing together, and so I got to make sure I've got everything going here. But I think I got it. Anything happening new with you? I mean, we only talked like 6-7 hours ago, but anything new happening?
No, it's been a really busy day. Productive, busy, everything's gone well. So, just cruising through the day over here. That's been a good thing.
That is a good thing. People are saying hello in the comments section, so I guess people are logging in. That's great.
Hello.
I'm not seeing questions just yet, but I think everybody's still in the hello section, so that's okay.
Right?
Because you have to say hello. You have to greet each other, right? We have to.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I love it.
That's part of being happy, is being happy to see our friends and the people we care about. So, yeah, good stuff. Right. Well, I have to say, I do hope we kind of finish up the book this week, because I've been saying that we would for a while now. In fact, I even put some posts up that we weren't going to be able to do it those days, and then I put it up today, and we couldn't actually get to it. So I actually hope that this time we can really actually talk about the book. But we'll see. That's all right.
Well, what I think is interesting is that I kind of took a little preview of the first. We have 2 chapters to go. They're both short.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But, sometimes that's misleading, because
no kidding.
Could possibly be one sentence in there that is really meaty and worth diving into, and we can spend a lot of time there. But one of the things that I saw, because I have been feeling that too. I was like, okay, we ended with chapter 25. We still have 2 to go. And then I took a bunch of time off over the holidays, and then we didn't get to it this morning.
Yep. And
then I read this and I thought, oh my goodness, like this is perfect timing for now. So
the last 2 chapters, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
So if you're ready to dive in, we can just dive in, and then if questions come up, we'll go wherever we go.
Well, Nasha says, I think I need Neville today, so I think that's the answer. Yes, we have to dive in.
Well, this chapter, the second to the last chapter, we're on chapter 26 of Neville Goddard's The Power of Awareness. And this chapter is titled Destiny. And when I first saw that, I thought, what? Because to think of destiny, to me, that word, I think of like fate. And conscious creation, very different philosophies, right?
Right.
But I think it's interesting what Neville says. He answered my question in the first couple sentences. He says, your destiny is that which you must inevitably experience. Then he says, really, it's an infinite number of individual destinies, each of which, when attained, is the starting place for a new destiny.
Ah.
We talked about this before, about if every possibility is actually a possibility or has even already happened, then are we really creating, or are we just choosing? That's what this reminds me of, right? An infinite number of individual destinies. Since life is infinite, The concept of an ultimate destiny is inconceivable. When we understand that consciousness is the only reality, we know that it is the only creator. This means that your consciousness is the creator of your destiny. The fact is, you are creating your destiny every moment, whether you know it or not. Much that is good and even wonderful has come into your life without your having any inkling that you were the creator of it. However, the understanding of the causes of your experience and the knowledge that you are the sole creator of the contents of your life, both good and bad, not only make you a much keener observer of all phenomenon, but through the awareness of the power of your own consciousness, intensify your appreciation of the richness and grandeur of life.
Okay.
Regardless of occasional experiences to the contrary, it's your destiny to rise to higher and higher states of consciousness and to bring into manifestation more and more of creation's infinite wonders. Actually, you are destined to reach the point where you realize that through your own desire, you can consciously create your successive destinies. The study of this book, with its detailed exposition of consciousness and the operation of the law of assumption, is the master key to the conscious attainment of your highest destiny. This very day, start your new life. Approach every experience in a new frame of mind, with a new state of consciousness. Assume the noblest and the best for yourself in every respect, and continue therein. Make believe. Great wonders are possible.
Okay.
I love this so much that he says this very day, start your new life.
Right, yeah.
And we're at the beginning of a new year, so that just has a very fresh.
Well, you're right. Yes. Yeah. There's a definite connection there. The choice of the word destiny, though, is still interesting. I mean, yes, he changed it around so that really it is an infinite number of individual destinies, each of which, when attained, is a starting place for a new destiny. So I'm trying to I'm trying to get on the Neville decoder ring and ask myself, okay, what does that mean in common language? Because we don't normally talk about destiny that way. So what is he talking about deliberate creation?
Well, he says you are the creator of your own destiny. Mm-hmm. Right? So yes, he's talking about deliberately creating. And then he says there's an infinite number of destinies. So to me, it's almost like a paradox because, like I said, when I saw the word destiny, I always see that as having a definition like there's nothing I can do about it. This is my destiny. It's going to happen whether I want it to or not. It's going to happen whether I try to stop it or not. It's going to happen whether I encourage it or not. It's my destiny, right? Which has a lot to do with the philosophy of fate.
And he actually reinforces that idea in the second paragraph where he says, the fact is you are creating your destiny every moment, whether you know it or not. So now I'm even beginning to doubt whether he's talking about deliberate creation. I think maybe he's talking about just the fact that we create constantly with every thought that we have.
Okay, I would agree with you there too. I mean, I think he's covering both ideas. Because when he says, this very day start your new life with a new state of consciousness, I think that's the difference. In other words, that's the conscious creation. It's a new consciousness that we have when we become conscious that we are the creator.
Okay.
But everyone's creating their experiences, whether they're doing it consciously or not. Most people are doing it unconsciously, right?
This is true. I'm checking to see what people are saying. That has to be true
if the law of attraction is a law. That we're all creating, we're all attracting, and some of us are conscious, and we can use that consciousness to create things that are better experiences for us.
Now, Colleen has an interesting question. She says, I was always told not to assume, but it was always negative. Is that the same thing as living in the end?
No. I'm going to say no, right? I know what she's saying. I know what you're saying, Colleen, because of that assumption, law of assumption.
Right.
But most of the time when we're taught not to assume, it's more like don't jump to conclusions when you don't have all the facts.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Right? And it usually involves someone else. like we're making an assumption about what someone else, what their motive is, or we're making an assumption of what someone's behavior means, right? And all of those are just stories that we're telling. But when we're talking about the law of assumption, we're talking about something it might be the same thing, it's just used in a different application, right? Because we're assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. We are assuming that these things have already taken place and that they are real, regardless of what our eyes and ears and, our other senses tell us. We're assuming that this thing that we're creating in our mind, that our imagination is true.
In a sense, I think the distinction is instead of assuming something about somebody else, we're assuming something about ourselves.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, exactly. So we can't, it doesn't serve us well to make assumptions, generally in the sense that we're assuming about other people, or I'll tell you another place where it doesn't. And that is, it can be the exact opposite of what we're trying to do with Neville's teaching when we assume that just because something happened before, it's going to happen again. And this can be really tricky, and it can hang us up as conscious creators, because when we come into a place where we say, well, every time I do X, Y happens, and it's something we don't want, right? Like if somebody says, well, every time I apply for a job, they don't want to hire me. In coaching, we call this an assumption. We use that word because what happens is that the more times we have that experience, the more attached we get to thinking that that is exactly the outcome. Right?
Yep. Okay.
Like someone says, well, every time I ask a person out on a date with me, they say no.
Well, that ties into,
so then they get
because she has
to
a
ask
follow-up.
anyone on a date.
She followed up a question. This kind of ties into what you're talking about. She says, right, but can't we make a positive assumption for how someone may treat us?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Those are the assumptions that go back to what Neville is teaching. I think it could work either way. Of course, we don't want to work it that way. We want to make vignettes and conversations that feel good,
Right.
that are beneficial, and
Yes.
that are contributing something good to our life and to the rest of the world. But oftentimes we don't, right? We assume that things are going to go the way they used to go, or the way they have in the past. And the more times that happens, the harder it is to sort of break that pattern. We say, oh, well, every winter I get a bad cold.
Yes.
And what happens? Then winter happens and I get a bad cold. I say, see, every year for decades, every winter I get a bad cold. And we keep telling that story. And that's called an assumption. Pretty soon we assume it's going to happen because it's happened in the past. And so it's the same tool, if you will. It's just a different application. So we want to apply it in the way that Neville's teaching us to apply
Right.
it. And that's what you said. Assume that someone's going to treat you well. Assume that things are going to go well. And then assume the feeling of those wishes as if they were already fulfilled.
I like the word she used. She used
That's a
the
great
word
question.
She used the word positive assumption, which is a nice way to delineate. A negative assumption would be making a bad assumption about somebody else that we really shouldn't be making. A positive assumption is making an assumption that we want for somebody else. Different kind of thing. Not exactly opposites, but I like the terminology of positive assumption.
Right. And, assumptions, in those kind of assumptions can get us into trouble, right? A lot of times people assume they know what someone else is thinking. Yeah. It's like, oh, you just think that blah, blah, blah. Well,
Yeah.
no, unless I've told you what I'm thinking, you don't know what I'm thinking.
It's
right?
true.
Those kind of assumptions can get us into trouble. But
And,
the assumptions
and even
that
if they
Neville's
tell
talking
us what
about-
they're thinking, sometimes we still don't know what they're thinking because they may not even be telling us the truth about what they're thinking. I mean, it can get really nasty when you go that way. So yeah, it's really
What's interesting
That's
What's
the
interesting
tricky
is
part.
that Neville calls it a law.
He does, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. He calls it the law of assumption.
I think
So,
I think he can do
great
that
question.
too. He can do that because of the way he applies it. He applies it for ourselves internally, and regardless of what anybody else ever tells us, we know what's going on internally. It's not like we can actually fake ourselves out if we really want to. Sometimes we actually do that, but if we really want to know what's truly going on inside, we can know that. It's not like we have to wait for somebody to explain to us what's going on. We can know that. We just tap right in. It's like, yeah, okay, I know that's true. Yeah, I know that's not really true. Yeah, I get it.
Believe me, that's a question that a good coach will never accept the answer, I don't know. When you ask a client, you know, right? It's like, what do you want? Or how do you feel about this? I don't know. Yes, you do.
Yeah, all the time.
I often say, if a client tells me I don't know, I say, well, what if you did know?
Ooh, nice.
What if you had to guess? What if you had to guess? Because it's in there. It's in there. The answer.
By the way, Colleen also shared some more details that ties into what you were explaining. She says, well, first of all, she made an interesting comment. Everyone is us pushed out. That's an interesting way to describe living in a physical world, a non-physical being. She says, so, and this is an interesting conclusion to draw, so we can revise the past. Neville's series of revisions. And then she says, in response directly to what you said, exactly, I said August was always a bad month until I changed the story, so I had a great August in 2017. Which just proves the point. Which is great.
Yeah.
So well done.
I did that with
Mondays.
Mondays.
2018. Was that? Oh, you did it with Mondays?
Yeah, I just noticed that Monday has such a bad reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Even, you must have a case of the Mondays. Right? It's like the Monday was like, everybody says, oh, Monday. And I just went, no, that's like 1/7 of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to automatically assign Monday as just a bad day. So I took some pains when I started my business to make Monday a sort of easier day. And I never scheduled certain things on Monday because I wanted it to be like not a rough day. So we just always say around here, yay, it's Monday. Monday's a happy day.
That's good. I like that. Yeah. In fact, I sometimes think maybe we should rename all the days Good Day. So yes, I had a good day. Today was a good day. Oh, I had another good day. Oh, I had another good day.
Yeah, it's we get to make that choice. We get to make the choice. I thought about that this morning, actually. I'll be honest and confess that upon waking up, I looked at my clock and it was 5:30. Which meant I had an hour. I didn't have to get up for an hour. But I was having trouble going back to sleep, and my brain started going in the direction of grumbling about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I caught myself and I said, no, I get to decide. Like, I don't need to automatically decide that, number one, if I can't go back to sleep, that's a bad thing and I'm starting off the day. No, I'm not going to do that. I just went, it's a good day. I get to decide how I respond to whatever happens, and I'm making the choice right now that I'm in a great mood and it's a great day.
I like your phrasing, too, because I realized I have a tendency to say it's going to be a good day. But I like your phrasing. It already is a good day.
Yeah. Yeah. You know how people have that expression where they say, it's like something happens early in the day and the expression is, oh, it's going to be one of those days?
Yes.
Oh, I never say that. I won't let myself say that because it's like you're creating that.
That's right.
I just created one of those days. I'm not going to create that.
All of this just is so amazing to me about how well it shows us that we are incredibly powerful creators. I mean, every single thought we have creates. Which was, for me, that was a really daunting thought when I first ran into that one. And sometimes it still intimidates me a little bit. But the good news is I've learned over time that as I focus, even early on in the face of unlimited opportunity for failure, I still focused on succeeding, on changing the focus, on pivoting, on finding that good thought, and failing and succeeding, and then failing and succeeding, and fail, and succeed. But I kept doing it. I kept after it. And over time, I have been able to turn the habit around so that now it's actually Dare I say it, easy? It's actually easy to do.
Well, here's the way I look at it, and you know me, I'm a pretty down to earth of the law of attraction people. I'm pretty down to earth. I'm the one that says, welcome to earth. Yeah, you're gonna have days where it's not a whole lot of fun.
Right.
Life has ups and downs and ebb and flow. We're here and we learn, and sometimes we learn through contrast and things that don't feel good. And you know what? It's all part of the journey. But I don't think we have to help it along by waking up and announcing that it's going to be a bad day.
Colleen seems to be that's a good point. Colleen seems to be our question asker today. She says, how do you apply the law of assumption? Do you write how you apply it? Write how you want to assume a situation or circumstances. Is that's her take on it? Is that your take on it?
I'm not sure I understand the question. You're just asking how to apply it. As far as the method of using... Yeah, she seems to be thinking about writing about it. Well, I mean, I think scripting is a great thing to do. If you like to write, write the scenario that you want to see happen. It's a really powerful thing to do. Mm-hmm. And you can even do that. I'll tell you an exercise that I've given to clients before, that I love. I've done it myself for certain situations. If I've had a situation in the past, that wasn't comfortable, that wasn't good, that wasn't something that I wanted, that didn't turn out the way I wanted. In the same way that we go back and we imagine a conversation differently with the pruning shears of revision, so to speak, I would write the situation out. I would write it twice. The first time, I would write it exactly as I remember it, with all the sorrow and pain and crushing grief that happened with it. Right. But then I would write it again, and the second time I would write it down as if I was all powerful and as if I made it happen exactly like it happened for a reason. So in other words, if the first scenario was that I planned a parade and it rained, the second scenario, I would not write how I planned a parade and it was sunny. That would be one way to revise it. But I would actually write that I planned a parade and then I planned for it to rain because, and I would just let my imagination go. And it's very interesting what will come up when you do an exercise like that, because what you realize is that maybe you did create the rain. Maybe you created it for some specific reason, to learn something or to have some other outcome. And it's just a good exercise to do. Well, so also, in the same way that... It also strikes me that if you follow that particular approach, do that exercise, just asking the question that you asked kind of pushes you to say, okay, I let go of the fact that it rained on my parade. You have to. If you're going to find something good about that rain, you have to let go of it, which is exactly what you need to do anyway. Lots of loud traffic around my office. So what happens is, in the first scenario, we're in victim mode. Mm. Oh, I planned a parade and then, whoever, right? Zeus caused it to rain on my parade. So poor me, because I made this big plan and it got ruined and I feel really bad about it. Right. But in the second sense, when you take on the responsibility of being the one that caused the rain, you can't stay in victim mode anymore. It's just like you said, suddenly I have the power, and that's what happened. It's just an energy shifting exercise, but it's a powerful one. Mm-hmm. Not exactly, I think, how Neville would do it. I think Neville would have you write the story the way you wished it would have happened. And the sun came out and and the parade was great. Everyone had fun and it was a nice sunshiny day. And that's okay too. Whatever shifts your energy to feel better, that's the most important thing. Yeah, good point. Because that's what you're really trying to do. You're trying to shift the energy. If you feel a shift happening, you know you're on the right track. Until you feel a shift happening, just keep doing processes until you feel it. Because that's the key. What's the key phrase that we all know from Neville? Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You got to feel the shift, otherwise you're not assuming the feeling. Right. Exactly. So okay. I think we've answered the question. I'm still kind of getting my head around this idea of destiny being creation. But that seems to be what the Neville Decoder Ring is saying. Well, what I think is that I like to look at it this way. If I apply this method, and if the law of assumption is a law, just like, the law of attraction, if it's a law,
right,
and I apply it correctly, then the outcome has to happen, right?
I think that's where the idea of destiny comes in.
So that outcome is destined to happen. And in that way, it's destiny. That's the way, that I think it works for me. It's not a fate thing. I get to choose it. And I think Neville's pretty clear about his belief that we get to choose our destiny. We create our own destiny.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the opportunity to change our consciousness so that we're in a place where we can choose it. Otherwise, it just happens. And it feels like it's happening to us. Right? That reminds me of, I think it was Carl Jung that said, if you don't make your unconscious conscious, it will run your life and you will call it fate.
Mm-hmm.
Probably my paraphrase of his quote, but in other words, we can call it destiny while we're unconscious and it's just what happened to us and it was just destiny. Or we can get conscious about it and we can have some control over our destiny or all the control.
Yep. So while like Colleen says destiny, she says makes me feel it is predetermined. What you're explaining is that the predetermination is limited to one particular path, from one particular decision about one particular thing to focus on.
Right, and the concept of it being predetermined is directly connected to our unconsciousness of it.
Right.
Right? If I'm completely not aware that I have any control over it, then whatever happens is just going to happen, and I'm going to view it as fate.
It's an interesting way of describing.
Pardon me?
That's an interesting way of describing what goes on. Because what's the typical process that somebody uses? Put aside the Neville process for a moment. Just a general process somebody uses for attracting something. They put it out there. They feel good about it. They do their processes on it. And then they go on with their lives and they forget about it for a bit. Okay? During that forget about period, it's in their unconscious. It's not in their conscious mind. So during that time frame, that's when it's destiny.
Even Neville talks about, right, falling asleep.
Yeah.
And says it's your subconscious that does the creation. So we're not really completely conscious there either.
So destiny...
Colleen, this is great questions.
These are excellent questions you're raising, yeah. So apparently destiny is specifically the part of the creation process that happens in the unconscious mind when we're in our unconscious state.
But it seems like.
Okay. Well, now I want to know what the last chapter is then.
Well, the last chapter, the title of it is Reverence.
Okay.
Which I like already.
Okay.
Let's see what he says. He starts with, it looks like a verse, but I'm not sure where it comes from. Never wouldst thou have made anything if thou hadst not loved it.
Yeah, in the book that I'm reading, the source is given as Wisdom 11:24.
Right. So I'm not sure where that's from.
I'm not sure either.
He says, in all creation, in all eternity, in all the realms of your infinite being, the most wonderful fact is that which is stressed in the first chapter of this book. You are God. You are the I am that I am. You are consciousness. You are the creator. This is the mystery. This is the great secret known by the seers, prophets, and mystics throughout the ages. This is the truth that you can never know intellectually. Who is this you? That it is you, John Jones or Mary Smith, is absurd. It is the consciousness which knows that you are John Jones or Mary Smith. It is your greater self, your deeper self, your infinite being. Call it what you will. The important thing is that it is within you. It is you. It is your world. It is this fact that underlies the immutable law of assumption. It is upon this fact that your very existence is built. It is this fact that it is the foundation of every chapter of this book. No, you cannot know this intellectually. You cannot debate it. You cannot substantiate it. You can only feel it. You can only be aware of it. Becoming aware of it. One great emotion permeates your being. You live with a perpetual feeling of reverence. The knowledge that your Creator is the very self of yourself and never would have made you had He not loved you must fill your heart with devotion. Yes, with adoration. One knowing glimpse of the world about you at any single instant of time is sufficient to fill you with profound awe and a feeling of worship. It is when your feeling of reverence is most intense that you are closest to God. And when you are closest to God, your life is richest. Our deepest feelings are precisely those we are least able to express, and even in the act of adoration, silence is our highest praise. So once again, Neville, speaking of being close to God and speaking of that when we're closest to God, that's when our life is richest. But if we go back into Neville land, we remember that he constantly says that God is our imagination. He starts this chapter saying it, right?
Right.
Saying that you are God. And so if I have to pull that together and figure out, well, what is he talking about? It sounds to me that he's talking about when we're closest to our real self, to our higher self, our wiser self, our inner self, whatever you want to call that. When we're closest to that part of us is when our life is the richest.
Well, not only does he say...
Is that how that lands with you?
Well, yeah, but not only does he say that you are God, he also says that God is consciousness. That's a theme that he carried out a lot. So, in this case, he says, when you are closest to God, your life is richest. If we were to substitute the word consciousness, it creates an interesting meaning. When you are closest to your consciousness, your life is richest. In other words, the more conscious you are, the more rich your life is. And that's a nice juxtaposition to the destiny. Destiny was about the unconscious. Now we're talking about the conscious. And that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And you know,
an interesting thing is that when my office is on the busiest corner and just sirens are going by. I don't know if you can hear them, but I'm like, oh.
We're getting bits and pieces of them, but that's all right. They don't last long.
When I learned the energy scale that Abraham talks about, or the emotional scale,
right,
I immediately applied that or compared it to another system that I had already learned, which was an energy scale that has to do with levels of consciousness. And the lowest level was victim level. That's that level we talked about a little bit ago where we say, I planned a big parade and it rained on me and poor me and I don't have control over anything. And the highest level of energy was, I called it the Jesus level because it's the walk on water level, right? It's the miracle level. It's the I can create anything level. It's the exact other end of the spectrum. And so when we look at it that way, and we look at it as a level of consciousness, we're not just raising our vibe, we're not just trying to lift ourselves up the emotional scale, but we're actually raising our consciousness level. Mm-hmm. And the further we get away from victim energy, and look, there's no judgment when I talk about this. We've all experienced victim energy.
Absolutely.
We've all been in the life sucks and it's never going to get better and things are terrible and I can't help, no one's going to help me and I can't get out of this pit I'm in. Everyone has experienced that. Hopefully not very often, but we've all been there. And the further away we get from that, and the higher up the emotional scale we go, the higher our level of consciousness is. And the higher our level of consciousness is, the easier it is for us to consciously create things.
So, in this context with Neville, the degree of consciousness is equal to the degree of being able to deliberately create, and more importantly, to be aware of ourselves as deliberate creators. So that the more aware we are, like the super aware one is, like you said, the Jesus level, the level where you can just create all these miracles, which from your perspective may or may not be miracles. They may be miracles from somebody else's perspective. From your perspective, it's more like, this is what I'm focusing on, so it's happening, and there it is. Right. Yeah.
Right. And the longer are doing the work, doing the practice, I think the easier it is. Like, I don't necessarily think of myself as creating miracles all the time, but I experience things that are hard to explain all the time. And then I have people that are sort of on the outside looking in say to me, oh my gosh, like the things that happen in your life. I go, oh yeah.
How about that?
But it starts to become just the way you operate, because it's like anything else that you practice all the time and then you get used to. So this is not for some special chosen, people. This is for everyone. We're all built this way.
Right. Yeah.
Every single one of us has this within us. All of us.
Which is encouraging. It's like, oh, good. Yeah. It's not just I don't have to just go ask the guru. I can do this.
Right. It's so true. And
yeah.
The one thing I try to remember is that your level of consciousness is directly related to your lack of judging. So remember that, like, all the time, and it will serve you really well. As soon as we start to get judgmental or we start to be judgy about things, we're dropping down that ladder of consciousness.
That's true. There's another way to drop down that ladder, and Colleen inadvertently said it. She said, I had a job fall into my lap. Oh, let's see, wait. No, it's scary for me at times to think I have that much power.
Yeah.
And that's falling down the ladder a little bit, because you're saying, oh, that's scary to me. Well, that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is it's thrilling to know I have that much power. It's exciting to know. Neville
said at one point something close to to whom much is given, much is required, right? In other words, when we have a lot of power, he made a statement in this book or the one before, I can't remember, but it was like, use it for good. Mm-hmm. Because you can use it however you want to.
Right.
But we should be good stewards of this power. We should use it to do good in the world. And I agree with that. I think we all have this power. And it's nothing to be afraid of. We just need to know that, we can use it to do good.
And we can all point to people that we know of, people in our lives, famous people, whatever, who use the power for ill. But the point is, hey, if they can use it, then certainly we can, It's not like we're excluded from it. We can certainly do this.
It's sort of like when you find out, when the light bulb first goes on that you've created everything, it's like, oh my goodness, we've all created some stuff that was ridiculously not fun. Mm-hmm. And I just said to myself, wow, well, if I can create this mess, then I could create something amazing. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the encouraging part. It's all a question of how we decide to look at it. But if we decide to look at it that this is cool, this power is wonderful to have, that it's exciting that we can do this stuff. And it's kind of like the conversation that I had. I had it with you? I can't remember who I was talking with, but it came up. The topic came up of Star Wars, and I was expressing to whoever it was. I think I was talking to Alex yesterday. I was expressing how the original Star Wars movie, a lot of people get all worked up about, the Empire and the Empire Strikes Back and, the war and all that kind of thing. That wasn't what interested me about Star Wars. What interested me about Star Wars is that Star Wars was about Luke Skywalker learning to become a Jedi and learning to develop all these Jedi powers. And so I'm watching the movie and wanting to watch all the movies because I want to see what the next thing is that Luke learns how to do. And maybe I can learn how to do that too. That's the exciting part as far as I'm concerned. So I look at this stuff and I say, well, dang, I want to learn how to do that too. I want to be that creator.
It's the same exact thing.
Yeah, it really is.
We're just learning to be Jedis.
That's right. Yeah.
It really is. I wrote a blog post about this one time. It's like the only Jedi skill you'll ever need. Yeah, it's true.
It's really true. It is. So let's see. Does anyone have a question going on? Colleen's sharing some cool stuff. Jamie's shared some stuff. Jeffrey says, thank you everyone who is joining me in using our power to do good. I love that, Jeffrey. Yes. Way to go. And exactly. Colleen says, now I need to go watch the movies. They're great ones. They're really good ones. Yeah, no doubt about that. So, okay. Well, all right. Well, we finally finished Power of Awareness. But now that we finished it, now I kind of want to look back and see, okay, so what have we learned from reading Power of Awareness? Because 27 chapters is a lot of chapters, and trying to piece it all together is a lot. So if I'm asking myself the question, what's my big takeaway from the Power of Awareness? And I'm not sure where I even go with that, other than to say I've learned a lot more about what my consciousness really is. And in that sense, it's an empowering thing. I have become more empowered by the idea that I can. How did Jesus say it? Something like, "The works that I have done, you can do also." Something along that line. That's the feeling I'm starting to get now. Like, yeah, all these wild, amazing things that others are able to do, I'm able to do, and here's how I do it. And now that I know that, I feel like I can just keep practicing it. I mean, Colleen asked a question earlier. How do we do this? Do we just keep repeating the script over and over again? And, well, yeah, that's part of it. You know, you keep playing the script.
Yeah.
And
at some point, you will feel a shift.
Yes.
From, right? I mean, I don't know anybody who has used this method consistently who's not felt a shift. I mean, there's a shift, and then you will notice things in your vignette, in your script, that will start to harden into reality. You will see bits and pieces or the whole thing come to pass. I think that's why one of the things that I learned new going through this time is the importance of two things. One, keeping that script or vignette short.
Yes.
Keeping it really short and connected to the outcome as if it had already happened, and forgetting all the hows and everything that, gets in the way and distracts us from really setting a very clear, focused intention that we want. The outcome, the wish fulfilled, already fulfilled. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing was the importance of recognizing the difference between feelings and emotions. Yes. And knowing that we're assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And at first that may really be literal. The literal feelings that you're having, like reaching out and the feeling of shaking someone's hand, the feeling of walking upstairs, your feet on the stairs, or your toe. There was one case study that we read where the people wanted to be, they were in the military and they wanted to be stationed in Florida, and they got the word that they were going to be stationed somewhere else, and they were heartbroken about it. And so what they did in their vignette was they actually imagined themselves stationed in Florida, imagined themselves on the beach, and felt their toes in the sand.
Right.
Right? So it's physical feelings. It doesn't have to be an emotional feeling, an emotion, which may be hard to drum up. If you're out of work and the thing that you're trying to create is a job opportunity or your dream job, it may be hard to drum up the feeling of excitement and security that you feel in having the job. That may be not the first thing to go for. Right? So the first thing may be just the idea of your friend congratulating you for getting the job, and the feeling is you shaking their hand. Something like that.
Hey, let's take a moment
That's
to talk.
That's what I came away with.
Let's take a moment and talk more about that, because Colleen just expressed some confusion. She said feeling and emotional are different. I never looked at it that way. So let's talk about what we mean by feeling.
Well, the reason why, why that happens, I think, is because we use the word feeling interchangeably for both things. We will say, oh, I was feeling so happy, or I felt so sad. And those are emotions. And yes, we do feel them, and they are feelings, but there are other feelings that aren't emotions. Like if I say, well, I've told this story before. I had a friend that was in a very bad marriage, but she never let anybody know that her marriage was bad. And then she got divorced, which kind of shocked everyone. And she told me that every time she heard her husband's car pull in the driveway, she got a knot in her stomach.
Oof.
Well, that's a feeling. It may be connected to an emotion, but It's a physical feeling. So if you think about your five senses, and those are the things that we can tap into using our five senses when we do our vignette, when we do this work. Emotions will come as well. They will come. But they don't have to be drummed up. They will come on their own once we get into, the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So the feeling, Neville, when he wanted to be in Barbados and had no way to get there, no money for a ship passage, no way, no job, what he started doing was in bed at night as he was falling asleep, he would imagine that he was in his father's house. He would feel his body in that bedroom, in that bed. He would listen and hear the sounds of the ocean that he would hear when he was in Barbados. So if you think about it, none of those are really emotions. They're just senses, the feelings. And then the emotion would come. So that's the difference, is that feelings are connected to your senses. Your sense of touch, hearing, sight, smell, taste. Those are feelings.
That's good.
And I think it's really, it's done my practice so much good to recognize that and to tap into that.
I've got a question and I have a request. So I'm going to do the request first.
Okay.
Nasha says, a humble request to all the members of the podcast. My friend Deidre, who is actually one of our regular listeners, needs a miracle and within 24 hours. I want her to be fine and on the podcast on Friday rather than being under an emergency surgery. Please visualize and send peace, love, and health to Deidre. So I share in that because Deidre is one of our best listeners.
Yeah, so here's how we do that right now all together, is we imagine what it would be like to show up for whoever's hosting the podcast on Friday and have Deirdre typing in the box, thank you so much, I'm feeling well, I had a good report, and I'm here on the podcast.
Woohoo, that would feel great.
And now what you do is you imagine that as you're sitting there, you imagine what it feels like to be sitting in the chair you're sitting for the podcast, with your hands on your desk or wherever you are, and you're imagining that your eyes are seeing this message come into the box. And you think to yourself, oh my goodness, that's the person that we were holding in this vision for health. So that's how you tap into that right then, is you imagine your body in that space, reading those words, hearing that news.
I like the method that you often refer to where you feel your feet on the floor as you're in that place. It's a way of kind of grounding into that's where I am right now. And
exactly.
I like that. So we can all do that right now. We can just imagine we're just like we're listening right now, just like we're participating in the podcast right now, and we got our feet in the floor and we got our hands on our device or we're sitting in our chair or whatever. This mode we're in right now, projected forward to Friday, and we're doing the exact same thing. But on Friday, we're seeing Deidre typing messages to us, which means she's great, she's fine, she's gotten through, and that's an exciting feeling. And now that we've identified that exciting feeling, get excited, milk it, yeah, all right, way to go, Deidre, woohoo, yeah, all right,
we
Deidre.
We actually had this happen this morning because months ago, Walt and I were talking about, we were making the intention that we wanted to have people that were listening via radio to call us live on their commute.
Yeah.
And we said, we'll be hearing people say, I don't even know how I found you. Suddenly here I am. I learned about law of attraction and somehow I found your podcast. And we literally had that exact thing happen this morning.
It did.
And we realized after the podcast that we had scripted that a few months ago. And here we were getting those exact words from someone. So this is how you do it.
And I was so glad that you pointed it out because I had forgotten that until you reminded me that we had actually done that. I was like, oh my God, we really did do that, didn't we?
Yeah.
So that was great.
So you said there's a question too.
Yes.
I want to be careful we answer it.
Sarah has a question. She says, any tips to stay focused and manifest good things more speedily? Lately, I have been really focused on the fact I am so lucky to be loved, to be healthy, and have such an amazing family. I really am trying to focus on being still and having appreciation of being in the moment. But some days I find myself becoming over-emotional and I feel I am undoing all the hard work I put into staying positive. I am an empath, so I'm really struggling with the emotions. So what do you have to say to Sarah?
First of all, the quickest way to bring yourself into the present moment, because you said that's one of the things you're working on is to stay present, is to tap into those 5 senses again. So in other words, and especially as an empath, because you're picking up emotions and things going on with other people, this will bring you back into your body. So staying grounded. So feeling your feet on the floor, like Walt said, that's a really good thing to remember. Taking a deep breath and asking yourself, what's the temperature in the room? Right? Do I smell anything in the room? Do I have a taste in my mouth? Can I feel my clothes on my skin or the air on my skin? And so you're bringing yourself back into your body, and you're having your own experience and not someone else's experience. The second thing is that whole idea that if we have an emotion that doesn't feel good, we're undoing all the good work we've done. I don't buy into that. Now, other people might, but we are emotional beings, and we experience all kinds of emotions. So those emotions, when you feel them, when they don't feel good, they are telling you something. They're speaking to you. So just hear what they're saying, but they're certainly not undoing any other work that you've already done. They're just giving you some information. The information may be that you're giving too much. Maybe the information is that you're wearing yourself out. You've got too much on your calendar. Maybe the information is that, you know, you're thirsty and you need more water and you're not taking care of yourself. Or the information is that, hey, these people that you've been hanging around are, you know, they're not really treating you the way you want to be treated. I mean, something is causing information. Something's causing the emotion, and it's giving you information. It may just be showing you where your values are. If something brings you grief or makes you feel sad, it's because you have a value attached somewhere. If I feel sad because, you know, I realize, I feel guilty because I haven't called my friend in 2 weeks. Well, that's just because I have a value around being a good friend and having a close relationship. So how do I deal with that? I pick up the phone. I make the call. You know, it's just listening and not judging those emotions as bad. They're not undoing anything. They're just giving you information.
I agree completely. I also want to point out that this idea of you've been on a positive track and then all of a sudden you're on a negative track, so therefore you're undoing all the good that you've done. It's not true. I agree with you. It's not true. And I also want to explain where I think it comes from. One of the things that people often talk about is if they want to manifest something, they will think of what the thing is that they want. They'll get excited about it, and then they'll remove it from their mind and go on with their lives and just keep it out of their minds, knowing that if they don't do that, the reason that they want to put it out of their minds and just, you know, set it and forget it, so to speak, is because they don't want to get into the pattern of thinking about all the reasons why it's not going to happen. So it's like a defense mechanism. It's a way of saying, okay, I'm not going to allow myself to fall into that pattern. And that's where it actually comes from. It comes from not just being negative in general, but being negative about the thing that you want. So does that mean that all negativity defeats what you want? No, not at all. It's not the way that works. It's just focusing on I want this thing, but here's all the reasons why it's not going to happen. That's the negativity that defeats it. So all you have to do is just turn that negativity off. If you get other negativity happening, you get a negative emotion happening, that's not going to defeat it. Unless the negative emotion is along the lines of, I can't possibly have that, it's never going to work, it's not going to work out. Well then, yeah, obviously, that's going to put you on the wrong path. But that's not the way most negative emotion is. Most of it's tied to all the 50,000 other things happening in our lives.
Right, and it's a good thing to recognize that emotion is important. We talked about this morning. So the real trouble is if you never feel emotions, not if you're feeling emotions.
Right,
if you're
yes.
feeling emotions is fine.
It's great.
Just listen to what they're saying and, you know, let it be a source of information.
Exactly. Yeah, good stuff. Good question, by the way. Very good questions we're getting. And Nasha's really expressing appreciation for all we're doing to help Deidre get better, so that's a good thing. And Sarah's appreciative to the question you answered, so that's good. She says, I don't know why I thought I was undoing it. Well, that's understandable. That's very understandable, because it's very easy to fall into that trap, especially with all the advices that you hear that are out there. People give all kinds of advice that isn't necessarily ideal. Let's see. And she appreciates that we cleared it up for her. So yeah, I don't see any new questions coming through here, but it looks like we're on the right track. We have struck the right tone, so to speak. So that's a good thing.
We have completed the Neville book.
We have completed the Neville book.
Right on time.
Yep, we have. Now we have to decide, what are we going to do? Are we going to go on to another Neville book? Because there are others we haven't touched yet.
There are.
I mean, we
I've
can
been
really do
considering
that.
a few of them.
What do people listening in? I mean, tell us. Do you want us to do another Neville book? Because we've done 3. How many have we done? 4 of them? 5 of them?
4.
We've done 4,
We've
and
done 4.
So there's like 6 more books we can do. So type in and tell us whether or not you should be. We should be doing more Neville books, and if you think that we should, then we will. By the way, I also want to make sure I get my announcements in. I forgot to do announcements. So if you're not yet a subscriber, hey, what are you waiting for? Look what you get every time. This is great stuff. I mean, we were getting people saying, "Wow, you guys are amazing." Well, thank you, but actually, you guys are amazing too. We're amazing because of what we're talking about. All of us are. It's not just Cindy and I up here on the platform. Everybody involved in this is. And you get this every single time that you listen to one of our podcasts. So become a subscriber. It's very easy to do. If you aren't seeing links for becoming a subscriber in the description for where you found this podcast, then just go to the homepage at loatoday.net, and you'll find links there for Android users, link for Apple users, iPad, iPhone, and so forth. And just follow the right link for you. It'll just click you right through the step-by-step process. One of those little wizard-type things. We'll just lead you through it, and you'll be subscribed. And then once you're a subscriber, make sure you either listen to the live stream or listen to the podcast recording of every show we put out there, so you don't miss any of them, because that way you're getting the maximum daily doses of happy that you need every single day of the week. And be sure you share the fact that you're listening to people you care about who you think might be interested in it. It raises an interesting point, Cindy. Nasha was telling me that she ran into some trouble with Facebook because she was literally sharing with everybody, and not everybody was willing to receive the message. So it's an important idea when you're going to share. Be specific who you're sharing with. Think about, somebody who you think might be really receptive to this. Do the sharing to one person. Don't just share, willy-nilly. I'm going to spray it like graffiti on a wall. Well, listen to LOA today. No, be specific. Think about who you want to think it to, because that makes it even more powerful. So, and thank you for those of you who are sharing too. We appreciate that too. Nasha's our number one sharer, by the way. Nasha shares more than anybody. She is the sharing queen of the world.
Thank you so much.
And so Nasha's saying yes, please, please, please on the Neville. So I guess we have Nasha's vote on Neville. Michelle says yes, please. So okay, there's always a delay, so we have to wait for the messages to come through. But yeah, it looks like people want us to do Neville. So let's see, which one should we do next? We'll have to figure that one out.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. Well,
we'll figure it out before next week.
Wasn't there another one? This was like one of the 2 27-chapter books, if I remember correctly. It was a second one. I'm
thinking Your Faith is Your Fortune might be a good one.
Your Faith is Your Fortune, okay. I have to go to the Neville book to find that. Oh, is that part of this book?
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah, it is. No, it's the first one. Yeah, it's the very first one in the book. Okay. Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah, that book. Yes, it is part of it. It's another 27 chapters, so...
Well, that'll keep us busy for a while. We're good at moving very slowly through these things. Okay, yeah, let's do Your Faith is Your Fortune. We'll start with that one next time around. So, let's see. Are there any last questions? I don't see any last questions popping in. Lots of people saying this is good stuff. They're loving it. That's really great. And Colleen's in favor of it. So, yeah, I'd say we're finishing up. Before we do finish, though, I always forget this with you. I want to make sure I get it this time. You are an amazing coach, and people need to know how to reach you. How do they reach Cindy Chavez?
Well, they can reach me at my website, cindychavez.com. It's CINDIECHAVEZ.com. And I would love for you to reach out. Reach out and say hello.
It's fun whenever we hear from somebody, whether it's an email or somebody who left a message via the contact form on a website or whatever. But it's always just so much fun. No matter what the question is, no matter what the message is, it's great. We love it. So, yeah, please do it.
Thank you.
And we want to invite you to keep coming back every time. The schedule, by the way, Nasha asked you a question offline recently. She said, where can I find out what the upcoming events are? Easiest way to do that, go to the LOA Today page on Facebook and click on events. That's where I do the updating. So you want to find out what's coming up next, go there and check that out, and you'll see what's coming up next.
All right.
And with that, I think we have come to an end. But Cindy, this has been great. We finished the book
Always.
Finally. Hooray.
Always, yay.
We didn't think we were going to do it, but we did it. We finally got there. So fabulous. And I look forward to starting the next book next Tuesday with you.
I'll be back.
All right. We'll be back as well. We hope that you'll join us as well next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.